This is part 1 of a 5-part video series on local VFR and uncontrolled airfield operations. In this series, we will look at how to utilize NTAs near Vance Air Force Base, Oklahoma in Phase 2 of Air Force pilot training. On your local sorties in the T6 Texan II, NTAs within about 50 miles of your home base are great for practicing patterns, landings, and instrument approaches. Later in Phase 2, you will watch a 3-part video series on VFR cross-country operations, which will cover VFR regulations, airspace, sectional charts, fuel, route, and altitude planning, flight plans, and VFR arrivals and departures at controlled airfields. In this video, we will look at NTA usage, regulations, and mission planning. In Part 2 of this series, we will look at how to go to NTA Ponca City for a VFR arrival, pattern work, ILS-17 approach, and recovering back to Vance Air Force Base. In Part 3, we will look at how to go to NTA Perry from an East High MOA to shoot the VOR-17 approach while VFR. In Part 4, we depart Vance Air Force Base, fly the planned stereo route to get to NTA Alva, proceed VFR for the GPS 36 approach and circle to runway 18, depart for a North Low MOA, and then fly the Echo recovery. Finally, in Part 5, we go back to NTA Ponca City to shoot the VOR Alpha approach, then head to NTA Guthrie for some ELP practice. The primary sources used for this video series are the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, AIM, and AC 90-66B, all produced by the Federal Aviation Administration and available for free download at FAA.gov as well as in your ForeFlight documents. These publications, among many others, detail good operating practices and procedures for pilots to use when operating in an airport without an operating control tower. The FAA believes that observance of a standard traffic pattern and the use of CTAP procedures will improve the safety and efficiency of non-towered airfields. Let's start with some do's and don'ts of NTAs. First off, AFI 11-2T6 Vol 3 states the Ops Group Commander is the approval authority of operations at uncontrolled airfields. This regulation also spells out a few rules, such as aircrews will monitor the published CTAF and make all radio calls and position reports recommended in AFMAN 11-217, the AIM, and the official guide to basic flight information and ATC procedures available at FAA.gov. This regulation also specifies instrument approaches, rectangular patterns, and ELPs may be flown at NTAs, but overhead patterns may not. As of this video's recording, January of 2020, the Vance OG Commander has removed some of the NTA restrictions, as outlined in FCIF 18-061. As you can see, sorties with an IPM board may conduct touch and goes at NTAs that are approved to land at on the NAV info list, which we will look at in a minute. In addition, the 150 knot max rule was increased to 200, and the max aircraft increased to 4. Furthermore, Vance FCIF 17-072 approves instrument approaches while VFR at these NTAs near Vance Air Force Base. The Vance NAV info list can be found in the ForeFlights document. As you can see here, there are more than a dozen airfields in Oklahoma that are approved to land at should you wish to do practice patterns and touch and goes there. It's also worth noting Vance FCIF 19-025 specifies the weather requirements and some standardized radio communications and procedures for going to and from local NTAs. As a disclaimer, periodically regulations change and FCIFs get rescinded, so ensure you are following the latest guidance on NTA use. FCIF 19-025 touches a little on radio communications for departing a MOA. For the rest of the comms used at NTAs, refer to the Squadron T6 Operating Procedures and Standards document, as well as Advisory Circular 90-66B. NTA radio calls are formatted like any other radio transmission. It's always who you're calling, who you are, where you are, and what do you want or what are your intentions. In parts 2 through 5 of this series, you will hear example radio calls throughout, but be sure to spend time learning the standard radio calls in the T6 Standards document. Additionally, practice your radio calls when you chair fly. Remember, look good, sound good. There's no hiding that you're a student if you're dorking up the radio calls. The use of local NTAs in your flight training does not require extensive prep on your part as far as fuel and navigation planning. For local NTA use, you only need to become familiar with some of the basic airfield information before going there, and of course check weather and NOTAMs for the NTA. Make sure you set a bingo to arrive back at initial at Vance with 200 pounds of fuel. As seen here, plan on 150 pounds of fuel to make the flight from Vance to Ponca City. During your mission planning, learn the basic information about the airfield you are going to. There are lots of places you can look over airfield information, such as the VFR sectional chart. Do yourself a favor and take some time to look over and study the sectional chart legend found on paper charts and in the For-Flight Documents tab. The sectional chart will be covered in more detail in the VFR Cross Country series, but here's what you need to know regarding airfields. The low IFR chart contains a lot of the same information as the sectional. All the pertinent airfield information can also be found on approach plates for the airfield, as well as in chart, IFR, and VFR supplement books. Some of the local NTA information is also found in the Vance in-flight guide. Skyvector.com and airnav.com are also great places to get information about airports. In the next 4 videos, we will look at how to execute VFR patterns and instrument approaches at a few of the NTAs within 50 miles of Vance Air Force Base.